Right now, somewhere in the Western Pacific, a steel city is moving through open water at nearly 30 knots. It stretches nearly 1,000 feet from bow to stern. It displaces over 100,000 tons of seawater. Its nuclear reactors burn without refueling for more than 20 years. And at this moment, it carries roughly 5,000 sailors, aviators, and specialists whose entire professional world exists within its hull and on its flight deck.
Hello, very good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Captain speaking from the bridge. Welcome back. Welcome home. I trust you have enjoyed the stay in Moagini Bay, Roatan Island today.
From the outside, the carrier looks like a symbol, an icon, a flag planted in the ocean. But symbols do not prosecute wars. Weapons do. What this ship carries in 2026, the systems loaded into its magazines, strapped beneath the wings of its aircraft, and integrated into its command networks, has shifted the calculus of naval warfare at every range band, from the horizon to the far side of the horizon. This is not a story about prestige. This is a story about capability. Before we go weapon by weapon, it is worth understanding how a carrier strike group is actually designed to fight, because the weapons we are about to examine do not exist in isolation. Each one occupies a specific layer in a carefully constructed architecture of offense and defense. A carrier strike group in 2026 is not simply a carrier surrounded by escorts. It is a distributed, networked, multi-domain combat formation. Around the carrier, guided missile cruisers and destroyers equipped with the Aegis combat system track hundreds of targets simultaneously. Beyond them, submarines extend the group's reach beneath the surface. And above all of it, a layered air defense envelope stretches outward in concentric rings, from close-in weapon systems near the hull all the way to carrier aircraft armed with long-range missiles capable of engaging threats before those threats know a fight has started. What is new in 2026 is how tightly integrated this architecture has become. Every sensor, every shooter, every platform feeds data into a common operational picture in near real time. The ship and its aircraft are no longer separate entities. They are one system.
What people don't always appreciate is that these weapons are not designed to be impressive in isolation. They are designed to work together. The ALM-174B is more lethal because the F-35C is sharing targeting data with it. The ESSM Block 2 is more effective because it's being cued by sensors on 3 different platforms simultaneously. The network is not a supporting feature, it is the weapon. The individual systems are just the ends of its reach.
1. AM-174B, the missile that redefined the threat envelope. The AM-174B is a derivative of the Standard Missile 6, originally a ship-launched weapon designed to intercept ballistic missiles and aircraft from a destroyer's vertical launch system. The AM-174B takes that same missile and puts it on an aircraft, specifically on the FA-18E F Super Hornet and the F-35C Lightning II. Open-source analysis places its effective range well above 100 nautical miles in air-launched configuration. Some estimates suggest beyond 150. For comparison, the AM-120 AMRAAM, the backbone of American air-to-air combat for decades, reaches roughly 60 to 100 nautical miles. The AIM-174B more than doubles that engagement range in certain scenarios. Why does that matter? Because the primary air threat to a carrier in a high-end conflict is not a dogfighting adversary. It is a saturation attack. Dozens, potentially hundreds, of anti-ship cruise missiles launched simultaneously from Chinese H-6 bombers or surface ships, aimed at overwhelming defenses through sheer volume. The carrier's interceptors need to kill those missile carriers before they ever get close enough to launch. That means engaging at ranges far beyond what traditional air-to-air missiles can reach. The AIM-174B is designed to solve exactly that problem. The weapon also carries a surface attack capability, meaning an aircraft carrying it can threaten ships from standoff distances that render counterfire extremely difficult. A Chinese task group operating at what its planners calculate is a safe distance from an American carrier must now recalculate. That distance is no longer safe. The first public confirmation came through official Navy imagery in 2024, showing the weapon loaded on Super Hornets aboard USS Theodore Roosevelt in the Pacific. The Navy made no announcement. The images appeared. Defense analysts understood immediately what they were looking at. That restraint was itself a message.
The AIM-174B forces a fundamental change in how adversaries calculate risk. Previously, there was a distance at which a bomber or a surface ship felt relatively safe from carrier-based aircraft. That distance no longer exists in the way it used to. The geometry of the threat has expanded in both directions, and our potential adversaries know it.
2. AGM-158C, LRASM, the missile that hunts on its own. Where the AIM-174B is primarily defensive, the AGM-158C long-range anti-ship missile, the LRASM, is pure offense. It is designed to find enemy ships and destroy them, and the way it does that job is unlike anything that has come before it in the American naval arsenal. The LRASM is derived from the JASSM-ER cruise missile, one of the most capable standoff weapons in American service. Its publicly acknowledged range exceeds 200 nautical miles, already exceptional for an air-launched anti-ship weapon. But what makes it extraordinary is not its range, it is its autonomy. The LRASM is built for contested electromagnetic environments. In a high-end conflict, jamming will be pervasive. GPS may be degraded or spoofed. Communications links between aircraft and missiles may be cut. Traditional anti-ship missiles that depend on continuous data link updates are vulnerable to exactly these conditions. The LRASM addresses that vulnerability through onboard intelligence. The missile carries a passive radio frequency sensor, an imaging infrared seeker, and an onboard processor capable of identifying ship types, distinguishing high-value targets from decoys, and selecting its own terminal attack geometry, including the specific point on the target ship it will strike. Once it is in the air, it will find its target with or without further help from the aircraft that launched it. It flies low to compress radar detection time, maneuvers to defeat interceptors, and routes around known defensive concentrations. It is, in the most literal sense, an autonomous hunter. For China's People's Liberation Army Navy, which has invested heavily in large surface combatants like the Type 055 cruiser, the LRASM represents a weapon that can threaten those ships from beyond the range at which they can effectively defend themselves. Using an attack profile their defensive systems were not designed to counter.
The targeting chain has historically been the vulnerability in anti-ship warfare. You find the ship, you communicate its location to the weapon, you maintain that link. Adversaries spend enormous resources attacking every part of that chain. The LRASM largely removes the chain, it finds the target on its own. That shifts the problem and the burden of adaptation entirely onto the defender.
3. RIM-116 Rolling Airframe Missile, the last line that rarely fails. We have discussed weapons that engage threats at extreme range. Now we need to talk about what happens when something gets through. In any realistic high-end conflict scenario, some threats will penetrate the outer defensive layers. That is not pessimism. It is the operational reality the U.S. Navy has planned for explicitly since the Falklands War demonstrated what even relatively unsophisticated anti-ship missiles could do to modern warships. The answer is a final defensive layer that is extraordinarily reliable, extraordinarily fast, and capable of engaging multiple threats simultaneously at close range. The RIM-116 Rolling Airframe Missile, the RAM, is that layer. Its name comes from its flight characteristic. It rolls around its longitudinal axis to maintain stability without movable control surfaces, making it highly maneuverable while remaining compact. Roughly 9 feet long, 5 inches in diameter, 160 pounds. A single launcher carries 21 rounds, and the entire system can detect and engage threats autonomously if necessary. The current Block II variant combines passive infrared homing with active radio frequency homing, meaning it can chase a missile designed to minimize its heat signature by homing instead on that missile's own radar emissions. At ranges of several nautical miles or less, there is no time for a human operator to deliberate. The ram sees the threat, classifies it, and fires. The sequence is measured in seconds. In a saturation attack, the ram operates in coordination with the phalanx close-in weapon system to create overlapping terminal engagement zones. Each system handles threats in its sector. The sectors are designed to overlap so that anything that defeats one system enters the envelope of another. The ram has been adopted by Germany, Greece, Japan, South Korea, Turkey, and others, which says something about its reliability, and its existence says something about the discipline of those who designed the strike group's defenses. They refused to assume the outer layers would be 100% effective. They built a final barrier anyway. That is not redundancy. That is strategic wisdom.
People focus on the long-range stuff, which makes sense. It's dramatic. But out here, the ram is what lets you sleep at night. You know that if something somehow gets through everything else, that system is going to react faster than any human ever could. It doesn't hesitate. It doesn't need to be told. That reliability is what matters when you're talking about protecting 5,000 people.
4. Evolved Sea Sparrow Missile Block. 2. The Guardian of the Middle Layer. We have covered the outermost layer and the innermost layer. The critical middle layer, the band of airspace roughly 5 to 15 nautical miles from the carrier, belongs to the Evolved Sea Sparrow Missile Block 2. The ESSM traces its lineage to the 1970s RIM-7 Sea Sparrow. Through successive upgrades, it has become the most capable iteration of that family ever produced. The Block 2 is a medium-range surface-to-air missile designed for what planners call the inner air battle, intercepting highly maneuverable supersonic threats, sea-skimming cruise missiles, and anti-ship ballistic missiles in their terminal phase. Its defining advancement is an active radar seeker. The previous ESSM relied on the launching ship's radar to continuously illuminate the target, tying up fire control resources and limiting simultaneous engagements. The Block 2 guides itself to the target in the terminal phase, freeing the ship's radar to track additional threats. In a saturation attack, that capacity for multiple simultaneous independent engagements is not merely useful, it is decisive. The missile also uses thrust vector control, allowing it to follow a highly maneuvering target through evasive maneuvers that would defeat a conventional tail chase intercept. And it is quad-packed in the Mk-41 vertical launch system, 4 rounds per cell that previously held 1, quadrupling magazine endurance without requiring a larger ship. The ESSM Block 2 is also fully networked. It can receive mid-course targeting updates from F-35s, other ships, and aircraft equipped with appropriate data links, meaning a threat tracked by sensors on one platform can be engaged by a missile fired from a completely different platform. No single ship needs to be able to see everything. What matters is that the network can see it and assign the engagement to the right shooter. Each layer of this defense presents a qualitatively different technical problem for an adversary. Defeating the ESSM Block 2 requires defeating an agile, active seeker missile being cued by the entire strike group's sensor architecture. And after that, there is still the ram.
What the Block 2 gives us is independence during the engagement. The older system needed the ship's illuminator. You could only engage so many targets at once because the radar could only point in so many directions. Now the missile handles the terminal phase on its own. We fire, redirect the radar to the next threat, and the missile finds its way. That changes the math on saturation attacks considerably.
5. F-35C Lightning II, the platform that multiplies everything. Everything discussed so far exists within a network, and the platform in the 2026 Carrier Strike Group that contributes most to that network's intelligence, awareness, and offensive reach is the F-35C Lightning II. It is tempting to think of the F-35C primarily as a fighter, a next-generation replacement for older carrier aircraft. That framing is accurate, but dramatically undersells what the aircraft actually does. The F-35C is better understood as a flying sensor fusion node, and command relay platform that also happens to be one of the most capable strike aircraft ever to operate from a carrier deck. Its radar cross-section is classified but publicly described as several orders of magnitude smaller than the FA-18 Super Hornets. In practical terms, the F-35C can penetrate airspace defended by the integrated air defense systems China has built around its coastal regions, airspace that would present serious risk to non-stealth aircraft. But stealth is only part of the story. The F-35C carries the AN/APG-81 active electronically scanned array radar, among the most capable ever installed on a tactical aircraft. It carries the distributed aperture system, 6 infrared cameras providing a spherical 360-degree picture displayed on the pilot's helmet visor, and it fuses all sensor data, from its own systems and from external platforms via data links, into one integrated picture shared with the entire strike group in near real time. An air threat detected by the F-35C's radar can be engaged by a ram launcher on a ship 50 miles away. A submarine contact can be acted upon by a surface ship's missiles. The aircraft is simultaneously a reconnaissance asset, a targeting relay, a strike platform, and a communications node, performing all functions from within threat envelopes that non-stealth platforms cannot safely enter. Its integration with the AIM-174B is itself a statement about how the Navy intends to fight. The F-35C penetrates defended areas to achieve firing positions inaccessible to a Super Hornet, releases the weapon, and egresses before the adversary has fully processed the threat. The adversary may not know the F-35C is present until the AIM-174B is already in their airspace. Block 4 software updates have progressively expanded the aircraft's weapons, electronic warfare capabilities, and sensor fusion. In the F-35 program, software is as important as hardware. It determines what the aircraft can see and what it can kill. That update cycle means the F-35C of 2026 is considerably more capable than the one that first deployed years ago, and the one operating in 2030 will be more capable still.
The jet is a sensor platform as much as it is a weapons platform. When I'm flying, I'm not just trying to solve my own tactical problem. I'm pushing data to the ship, to the other aircraft, to the whole picture. That's the shift people don't always grasp. The F-35C makes every other system in the strike group smarter just by being present. It raises the intelligence of the whole network.
If this gave you a clearer picture of how modern naval warfare is actually structured, subscribe for more analysis built at this depth.